Are midway through 2021. And for those of you who are in business or looking to start a business as a photographer, you can't ignore this marketing stuff. So it's about time that we had a conversation about what's new and what's old. What are the trends? Which ones can you ignore? And which ones should you be paying attention to? Stay tuned. Hey gang, how's everybody doing? I am Joe Edelman, and it's great to have all of you here for the Last Frame Live. A bunch of you are checking in already. If you're here, please check in, leave a comment, let me know you're here. I got Dieter here from Germany, Lynn's here from New York, Gabe in rainy Miami. I'm sorry, Gabe, it's hard to have sympathy that it's raining like once out of how many days in Miami, right? David in San Diego, Jim's here from Maine, Joe's here from Michigan. I got, let's see, Canadian Saurus Rex in Montreal and Alvin down in Virginia. So again, if you're here live, leave a comment in the chat. Let me know you're here and where you're watching from. And if you're not live, that's okay. Leave a note in the comments. Let me know where you're watching the show from. It's always cool to see where people tune in. So we haven't had a marketing conversation in a long time. You may know if you follow me long enough, I'm a bit of a marketing nerd. I keep track of all this stuff, and my business and my little piece of the photography world, it relies heavily on marketing. So I know from speaking to all of you folks and all the photographers that I get to interact with, I've never met the photographer that got into photography or started a photography business because they were really into marketing, right? It's kind of nobody's favorite thing. It's everybody's necessary evil. And photographers, like many creatives, hate the idea of having to promote themselves and, basically brag about what they do and who they are and to show off. But you have to. If you want people to care about your work, you have to. So what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about some of the things that you might be hearing about. And I know for a lot of you, when you see those marketing articles or you start hearing things about AI and marketing and then video marketing and user-generated content and all this stuff, I know those are those moments where it's just kind of like, la, 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 you really don't want to hear it. So the good part is you don't have to do all this stuff. You don't have to pay attention to all of this stuff, but you should at least understand what it is and why you might want to use it so that you can make good decisions for you and your business about whether or not to dabble in it, to get involved in it, whichever. And by the way, for those of you that aren't looking to make money with your cameras, that's okay. I hate to tell you, but quite a bit of this information can be very useful for you just from the standpoint of trying to build a following. People that are interested in your work, that will give you sincere feedback on your work. Not the trolls, not people with lots of opinions, but people that actually find some value in what you do and will be supportive and interact with you about your work. So what I did over the last couple of days, I've been collecting some information from several sources that I particularly like when it comes to marketing, but basically from articles that are literally, they use that word, and this should be a 4-letter word, but unfortunately it's not. They use that word trends. So I went digging to see, okay, what are all the big marketers saying? These are the marketing trends for 2021. And some of this information is information that I just have observed myself and have seen people using, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. So I want to kind of go through these with you, and don't panic when you hear all these, gang. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some statistics on some of them. I am going to explain what they are and how they work, because some of them you may not know what they are. And then I want to try and help you connect the dots, because some of them are going to sound like, why would I use that as a photographer? What benefit could that have? So I'm going to explain how you might use it. And I want you to understand that you don't need to do all these things. You're going to pick and choose. So one of the first trends that is really big in 2021, and it started to become a trend in 2020. It's actually been around for a little while, but the fact of the matter is it's becoming more universally adopted in so many ways, and that is AI, artificial intelligence, and especially when it comes to chatbots. You all know what a chatbot is, even if you don't know it by that name. You've been to websites, especially e-commerce websites, and as soon as you hit that website, or as soon as you start to scroll down the page, in the bottom right-hand corner of the page, a little box pops up and it says, "Hey, can we help you?" Right? That's a chatbot. And the reason it's called a chatbot is because 99% of the time, it's not a human being. It may be able to connect you to a human being, but the first part of the conversation you have, it's not a human being. It's kind of like when you call your utility service or you call your doctor's office and you're actually having a conversation with an automated voice system, right? Like talking to Siri or I can't say the A name for Amazon because there's one sitting right here and she'll activate, but it's like talking to them, okay? So here's the thing. Already in the year 2021, chatbots power 85% of online customer service. So in all likelihood, if you're interacting with a customer service chat on a website, it's a chatbot, not a human. Now, if you own that website, what are the benefits? The benefits are real simple. And actually, these benefits go both ways to the user and the owner. 24-hour service. That is incredibly important to consumers. And don't think that that doesn't mean that your photography consumers don't find that important, right? This is not just an e-commerce thing. This is an internet research slash shopping slash making a buying decision thing. In addition to that, instant responses. So obviously 24-hour service, but better yet, instant, no waiting. Big, really, really big. And of course, the ability to get answers to simple questions without having to talk to a salesperson, without having to give tons of personal information and feel like, great, now I'm going to get the hard sell. So chatbots benefit both ways. And believe me, research from several sources online, 82% of web users, when they want information from a website, you'll notice I didn't say chatbot. So this is just information from a website. So whether the information is on the website and they can find it easily, or whether they're going to fill out a contact form, or whether they're going to interact with a chatbot, 82% say, yes, we want an immediate response. So what that means to you is you need to be asking yourself a hard question here. If somebody comes to your website and fills out your contact form, if someone leaves you a DM on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or any of them, how long does it take for you to get back to them with a response? Think about that. It's probably nowhere near close to instant. So is there value for photographers to be considering chatbots? Maybe. Let me go a little bit further and I'll fill in the blanks. So bottom line is what we're talking about here, in addition to chatbots, if we are going to apply a little bit of psychology and apply some marketing terminology to this, we're talking about what's called conversational marketing. So basically what this is doing, it's facilitating one-on-one real-time connections between marketers and consumers, okay? So first of all, a little bit of background from some of the latest research, and this is research that was done at the end of 2020 coming into 2021. 63% of consumers are highly annoyed with generic advertising. So this is a generalized statement. So this applies to scrolling through your Facebook or Instagram feed and seeing ads. This applies to, ads popping up on websites where you're going to, et cetera. This applies to scrolling through your Facebook or your Instagram feed and just seeing generic pictures that don't make any connections with your desires, tastes, or needs. 63% are highly annoyed. 80% say that they are more likely to do business with a company if that company offers personalized experiences. So what does that mean? Well, this particular piece of research was done in the context of, does the website, whether it's selling, whether it's offering advice, regardless of what it's doing, is it doing it in a personalized way where it not only knows your name, but maybe it's asking for some information to be able to qualify you? But that piece of information, that statistic, can also be extrapolated a little bit further to realize that personalized experience also carries through the entire process. Once you connect with that potential customer, whether it be via email, whether it be via a chatbot, whether it be via phone, are you providing a truly personal experience? Are you showing actual interest in your customer, or just providing information? Well, this is what I do. This is what it costs. This is what you get. That's not very personalized. 90% also say that they find personalization to be appealing. Now, those last two statistics, to me, maybe it's because I'm a marketing nerd and because I've been around for a long time, but those two statistics to me are kind of like common sense. I honestly, I think that those numbers are low. I think realistically, they're both closer to 100%. I mean, why would you not want a more personalized experience? Why would you not want to feel that the person or business that you have contacted is sincerely interested in providing you value, right? So those are important things to understand. Now, I said, maybe you do, maybe you don't need to do the chatbot. Maybe you should consider it. So here's the thing. It's a lot like taking pictures. If you do a really good chatbot, it can really help you. If you do a really bad chatbot, it's going to turn people away, right? If you got great pictures, people are going to be interested in you. If you don't have great pictures, people are probably not going to be that interested in you, right? So that's the thing with chatbots. And you've all experienced this. If you pay any attention, you've all experienced this where the chatbot pops up and you're like, okay, let me ask it a question. And then my favorite, the one that drives me nuts, is it's a chatbot. It pops up and says, tell me your question, okay? And you ask it a question and it comes back right away and says, well, we'll get back to you within 24 hours. That's actually misleading. It's led me to believe that by taking the time to type this question, it is going to attempt to solve my problem. They should have told me before I typed the question in, if you type a question in, our customer service team will try to reply to you sometime tomorrow when they're back in the office. So I appreciate if a company is at least transparent with me and says, hey, look, we're not here. We can't give you the answer. So if you're going to do that type of a chatbot, at least use one where you're giving people choices. In other words, maybe the choices are, are you interested in wedding photography? Click. Are you interested in portrait photography? Click. And then it's going to drill down. There are lots of utilities out there that are available essentially for making chatbots. In fact, you can do it for free using Facebook. You can add Facebook Messenger to your website, and you can pre-program certain responses into Facebook Messenger. Now, Facebook Messenger doesn't have a really, really deep thread that you can create. So it's one of those things. If you're making your money full-time as a photographer, if you are doing portraits, doing weddings, maybe even doing commercial advertising work, could there potentially be benefit for you using a chatbot? Potentially. If you are willing to put the time in to making it very detailed, very effective, and if you understand that as you're putting all this information into the chatbot and you're answering all these questions, your goal is still to get the opportunity to actually speak with that person, right? Messaging doesn't count. Email doesn't count. You want to actually speak. You as photographers can't do your job unless you're going to interact with your customer. So the chatbots can be great especially if you're going to use them like for off hours when you're not working, so that people can at least get information and you try to help people out a little bit. They can be great if you are going to put the effort into making them great and detailed. There is tons of information that you can get with a simple Google search on what companies offer them, on how to create. I can tell you now, pretty much all the companies that offer the chatbots have tremendously detailed videos and tutorials about how to set them up and how to make them work. All I beg of you is understand, do not make the mistake of thinking, oh, I want to get a chatbot so that I don't have to deal with people, so that I don't have to answer email messages. I want to use the chatbot to cut down on my email. That is the wrong reason to get the chatbot. If you listen to all the statistics that I gave you, the reason for getting the chatbot is to make the customer experience better. At no point did I give you any statistics that said it was better for making your life easier. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to get more business, more customer interaction. The next thing to be paying attention to, in addition to chatbots and, of course, personalization, video marketing. Now, if you follow me, I've been talking about video and video for marketing for probably close to a decade already. But it's becoming even more important, which is almost hard to imagine. 63% of consumers, I'm reading the wrong one. 70% of consumers, and this is where your value comes in, say that they have shared a company's video. 72% of businesses say that their videos have improved their conversion rate, meaning the close rate. How many sales have they actually made? 52% of consumers say that watching product videos makes them more confident in online purchase decisions. Don't think that because you're photographers, that statistic doesn't apply to you. Oh my God, yes, it does. I'm going to get there and I'll show you. And then 65% of executives will visit a marketer's website and 39% call a vendor after viewing a video. So for those of you that are looking to do commercial advertising work, product work, event work, those types of things, that statistic, that's huge. That's like 2/3 of your potential audience that is going to respond to a video. So now, as a photographer, how do we put this to use for us? So since one of the bigger categories, of course, is portraits and weddings. Let's start there. Portrait and wedding photographers, obviously you post tons and tons and tons of pictures to show how great you are. But what does that tell your potential clients about the experience that they're going to have? And I want you to notice how often this word experience comes up in the conversation tonight. 2 words, actually, I want you to pay attention to: value and experience. You're going to hear a talk chat all about that next week, podcast. The key to making this video concept work for you is to use the video to communicate, to show off, to brag about, to educate potential customers about the experience of working with you. So, as an example, if you're doing a portrait session, even just having a GoPro set up, you'd be amazed at the quality of the imagery, video imagery out of GoPros today. Set up a GoPro on a tripod and record some simple behind-the-scenes clips so that when you're done the session and you're able to post some images on social media, because you are going to ask your customers if that's okay, you are also going to show a little bit of the experience, a little bit of the behind the scene. And gang, please, this is not YouTube crap where you're trying to impress other photographers. This is trying to show potential customers what it's like to work with you. These videos are going to be really short. In fact, they're going to be great for like Instagram and Facebook stories and that type of stuff where you're talking like 60 seconds of video. That's it. Mixed in even with some still pictures. And then, gosh, if you learn some really, really basic video editing skills, and I'm not kidding when I say really basic video editing skills, you can actually do some really nice marketing pieces. And we're going to come back to video in a few moments. But, actually, before I move on, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I mentioned about the executives visiting a marketer's website, etc. Look, if you're doing commercial advertising work and things like that, number one, what are the things that you would be able to show a potential company that increase the value. So number one, what's going to be important to a company? If a company is looking to hire you, you're probably not dealing with the CEO of the company or the owner of the company. You're dealing with an underling. So one of the first things that is going to be of value to that employee is whether or not you're a pain in the ass to deal with. Are you going to make their job easy? Are you knowledgeable enough about what you're doing that you're actually going to be able to help them figure out what needs to be done and make decisions so that the work that you're going to deliver is not just what they asked for, but actually what they need and what is going to have the best and biggest impact for them. For commercial advertising photographers, really what you are, if you're good at your job, you are a master at solving problems. That's the creativity. So showing videos of how you've done certain shots. I mean, think about your own surfing experiences. We always stop and watch those videos where they show like behind the scenes of how they made the exploding hamburgers and all that kind of stuff, because it's just amazing. And you watch the robots that they created to do that, and you all think it like, whoa, that's freaking brilliant, right? So you may not have a robot set up to make a hamburger explode, but that's not the point, right? You also are going to show some behind the scenes of your work in your advertising and show the finished product. And it's not just showing that picture or pictures, it's talking about it. Talking about what problems did you solve for that client? What did the client need? What problems did you encounter and did you solve to make sure that that client got a set of images that worked for them, that performed for them? Another little statistic about the video thing, by the way, moms. So this is, of course, women, but 35% of moms researched trust online videos more than they trust traditional ads. So video ads compared to traditional ads. Okay, that's a substantial number. Another big marketing trend, which I just honestly, I consider it to be a shift in a trend, not a trend, but it's definitely being talked about in all of the marketing arenas as a trend. And that is the social messaging apps. So we're talking, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Telegram, all of those kinds of apps. The numbers on these apps are staggering. The reason why I say I don't see it as a new trend, I see it as a transition, because really using the social messaging apps is simply a transition from using text messages. High school senior portrait photographers, as an example, have been using text messaging as a marketing tool for almost a decade now, because every high school kid's got a phone and texts, so it really works. But the fact of the matter is now, more and more of these same people are using the social messaging apps, especially things like WhatsApp, where stuff is, encrypted, where they can have stuff disappear. It's harder for mom and dad to get access to it, all that kind of stuff. Some statistics. Facebook Messenger, 1.3 billion monthly users on Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp, 1.6 billion active users and 55 billion messages sent daily on WhatsApp, which of course is owned by Facebook. The top three social messaging apps, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and WeChat. If you combine all three of those, they have more users than Facebook and YouTube, right? So this is a big category. This applies in several different ways in terms of how to use it. So I talked about the chatbots earlier. So chatbots are automated chats. Social messaging apps allow you to do live chat. So think about it as essentially an answering machine that you're going to pick up on, though, or a contact form that you're instantly sitting there waiting for the answer, and you're going to give the answer as soon as it comes in. So to use a social messaging app, especially via your website and even via a business page on Facebook, you want to set business hours. That's very, very important, because the idea is you want to have that person get an almost immediate answer. So that means throughout your workday, you are going to monitor that, so that worst case scenario, you're going to get back to them in a few minutes. But it's important to understand that when the message comes in, the person is still on the website. So if you really want to get benefit from what you're doing, you will make sure that you respond immediately, right? So you have to prioritize it. You have to make it a point to get that response back. But all of these apps have the ability to be embedded in your website, and many of them will work in coordination with the chatbots that are out there and available on the market. Statistics. 63% of customers, this is as of March of 2021, 63% of customers are more likely to return to a website that has live chat. So again, I'm not telling you that those of you that are in business that you should run out and put live chat on your website and you should get yourself a chatbot. No, but I am telling you, you should start to learn about it. You should start to pay attention when you are on other websites and see how they're used. Make it a point to intentionally interact and understand that experience. See the strengths, see the weaknesses, see what the frustrations are. But do understand that more and more people are using it, and especially if you're a photographer that's dealing with the younger generation, Gen Zers, right? If you're dealing with today's teenagers, if you're dealing with 20-somethings and 30-somethings, they use this technology aggressively. So the way you get new customers is to meet them where they are, period. That's why I said, it used to be text messaging, and now that trend has migrated to social messaging apps, because the fastest way to get somebody to answer you is not a text message. It is through a social messaging app, because that's where all the friends are talking to them. Another thing that's becoming kind of a big trend, and this is actually a phrase, I don't know if Google coined it, but Google talks about this in a lot of their marketing advice and marketing information that they provide, and it's called micro moments. So the definition that they give for a micro moment is an intent-rich moment when a person turns to a device to act on a need, to know something, to go somewhere, to do something, or to buy something, right? So it's those four things. Literally, micro moments have made up of four categories. They want to know something, they want to go somewhere, they want to do something, or they want to buy something. So to take advantage of micro moments now, 2021, right where we're at, you basically need to be where consumers are searching for information in that moment. That's the way you are useful. That's the way you're quick. When we act on needs in the moment, it's no different than, I'm really bad at this. It's a bad habit, but I do it all the time. I'll have a conversation with my wife and I'm like, oh yeah, we got to pick up such and such. And I know full well, number one, I'm going to forget it if I don't deal with it right away. And number two, I know that it's something that I can get on Amazon just as inexpensively as I'm going to get in the store. And I'm certainly not going to make a separate trip to the store for it. So I'm immediately going to pick up my phone. I'm going to go to Amazon. I'm going to find it and I'm going to order it. And I may not even buy it right away, but I'm going to stick it in a shopping cart. And so the next time I go to fill out an order, boom, it's done. So in the moment, I'm able to find what I need and how I need it. So how does this apply to photographers? Well, actually what this is for photographers is really kind of a kick in the butt to say, hey, having a website that is search engine friendly, putting together social media posts that are going to be found, that people will pay attention to, using hashtags, things like that. It is a reminder that those are extremely important things. And it's not about showing up first. So when we talk about search engines and all that, don't groan and roll your eyes and be like, oh, I've done that SEO stuff before and I wasted a lot of money. No. First of all, you never should have wasted money on SEO. If you did, that's on you. Okay? You got suckered. You still don't need to waste money on SEO. All you need to do is actually create good content. But the fact of the matter is, if you create good content, you're going to have great SEO. Swear, I have great SEO. And I spend very little time and very little effort on SEO. So we're going to come back to that as we get into a couple of other things. But micro moments, you're going to hear that phrase if you start reading about marketing right now. Another thing that's really big right now and having great impact on all the platforms that have it, social media stories. Stories are huge. And Now we're going to start to tie in some of the other things that I've talked about previously, right? So the benefits of using stories. So I'm talking about like Instagram stories, Facebook stories, even WhatsApp has stories now. And I'm talking about, YouTube has reels. Okay. So, everybody, not reels, YouTube has shorts, excuse me, shorts. Everybody's getting like their own little version of stories happening, right? Stories are going to allow you, number one, to quickly, easily increase brand awareness. You can generate them cheap. You can generate them on the fly. The expectation is not that they're going to be perfectly polished, branded material. In fact, stuff that's not perfectly polished, branded material does better. Stories allow you that constant, ongoing engagement with your followers. For the longest time, there's been a philosophy that, especially for like platforms like Instagram and Facebook, that you should be posting every day or every other day. And photographers are always like, oh my God, I can't keep up with that. I don't have enough pictures to do that. I don't know what to say, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's the best part. If you're still trying to post every day on Instagram or you're trying to post every day on Facebook, you're killing yourself for nothing. You're wasting your time. The algorithms are not benefiting you, so don't do it. Never has it been quality over quantity. Never. Wait, but let's back that up. Never has it been quantity over quality. There, we'll get it right that time, okay? Just never. Even though there was this push for the longest while that you got to hit it every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. No, that's gone. I promise you, it's gone. You don't need to do it. But stories has taken its place. So stories are easy. Stories allow you, let's say you're a portrait photographer. Again, I'm going to keep going back to the basic, most common categories. If you're working in a category of photography and you don't know how to apply these things, put me a little message in the chat here. Or if you're watching this later, put a question in the comments and I will help you connect the dots if you're not connecting the dots from what I'm telling you. But if you're a portrait photographer or a wedding photographer, you could be sitting at your computer editing a wedding and pick up your phone, selfie mode, and do a little thing where you scroll through the wedding in Lightroom or Bridge, and then you stop on an image and take your phone and zoom in close and pull it back and look and say, I am so lucky to do what I do. I love my job. Look at this picture. This was so much fun. Tell something about the couple. Boom, 15 seconds to 45 or 60 seconds. And what are people seeing? They are seeing your excitement and energy and passion for your work. The worst marketing thing that you can ever do is to tell somebody, I'm passionate about my photography. I'm passionate about recording your wedding day. That is like such cheap, cheesy talk. Nobody buys into that. You wouldn't talk like that if you just met somebody for the first time. So don't talk like that on your website. Show it, demonstrate it, prove it. And then people are locked in. Because believe me, by the time that potential bride contacts you, she's already looked at your photographs. So the sale's kind of in the bag as long as you don't blow it. So then what's the big deal? Why is she contacting you? Yeah, they want to know about price. 2, more importantly, they want to know what you're like. Are you a jerk? Are you a pain in the butt? What are you? Because they're thinking about trusting you with the most important day of their life. These little video shorts help communicate that without you saying, well, this is what it will be like if you work with me. Come on, we've all read that stuff and it's old, it's boring. These video shorts, stories, cost effective because they don't cost you anything to do them. You can do it in a minute and have it posted in 2 minutes. Literally, that's it. These are not fancy, polished productions. If you're doing them with a gimbal, you're doing them wrong. Keep it simple. And they are going to help increase traffic to your profiles and to your webpage because you are always going to put a swipe up to visit your website. And especially if you're a senior portrait photographer or for a wedding photographer, unless you want to photograph old people weddings, stories are how you get to younger audiences. Because the stories demographically are viewed more by younger audiences than they are by older, more mature audiences. Period. It works. It just simply works. Okay? So other things that you can be doing that will get people to interact with your stories, you can add polls like in Instagram stories. You can add links, or I already mentioned that, into stories. Snapchat has the geo filters, which, that's not going to be a big deal for maybe like a wedding photographer. Actually, I take that back. Wedding photographers, gosh, you could create a geo filter like with your logo in that at a wedding reception, especially if it's a younger 20-something kind of wedding, and basically let people at the wedding reception know so that people are taking pictures from the wedding reception, because they're going to do that anyway with their phones. So don't be the jerk photographer that doesn't let people use their phones. They're going to use their phones. That's up to them. It's not up to you. If the bride doesn't want it, then that's on the bride. But otherwise, you don't go there. Let it happen. But by using a geo filter, people are doing the advertising for you, because all those pictures are going to post, they're going to have your logo on it. Okay. When you do post on any of the social media, whether it's regular posts or whether it's stories, make sure you're using location tags whenever possible, hashtags, etc. Live video can actually be an interesting thing to do when you are doing stories. How would you use it? A wedding photographer, you usually get at least a 5 or 10-minute break somewhere during the course of the wedding. And a lot of wedding photographers today, I'm not going to get into this debate, but a lot of wedding photographers today, it's in their contract, like they have to be fed. They get a half an hour to sit down and eat. So whatever, take a couple of minutes and just do a little live piece. You're not worried about having 100 people show up to watch it live, because you won't get 100 people show up to watch it live. But it's going to stay in your story for the 24 hours and give people an opportunity to see you kind of on location, doing what you do, where you do it, and talking about it. Very, very valuable. So a couple other things that are big trends. And this next one, if you run your own website, like a WordPress website, like I do, you could use these. If you're doing like Squarespace or that kind of stuff, I don't know that you would have the option, and that is browser push notifications. You've all run into them where you go to a website and you're there for about 15 seconds and a little box pops up at the top of the browser that says, "We would like permission to send you notifications whenever we update the website." And of course, most of you probably push no, and you say, "Don't do it." But here's the irony of it, okay? In the last year, statistically, about 85% of online stores, which of course we're not running a store, but bear with me, 85% of online stores are now using push notifications. And here's what's happening though with push notifications. Twice as many people will sign up for a web push notification, that little box that comes up the top of the browser, than they will a newsletter. Now, I would still encourage you to build a newsletter. I talked about that when I did the last frame about getting banned from Facebook, right? I would still encourage the newsletter. But the fact is, 2 times the people that'll sign up for your newsletter are going to go for that push notification on the website. Only 10% of email marketers, and this is information that's been collected from all the major email marketing companies like Aweber, MailChimp, all of them, only about 10% can achieve a newsletter sign-up rate that matches the same performance of click-throughs as push notifications on a website. 6.5 hours is the average time that passes before the recipient of an email newsletter opens the newsletter. And I can tell you that actually holds very true even with my newsletter, okay? In the case of web push, the recipient sees it immediately because they're on the website. So is this like something you should be like, "Oh my God, I've got to get this, I've got to do it"? No, relax. But should you be paying a little bit of attention to the potential and how you might put it to use here for your business? Absolutely. Okay. And a couple last things here really quick. Content marketing. What is content marketing? Content marketing is the number one way to get good SEO. So I kind of alluded to this earlier. The advice from Google, rather than chase and this is from Google, right? Rather than chase all the latest SEO trends, because even just recently, Google just made a major modification to its algorithms. And it's based really on the way your website works, not even the content of the website, but it's based on page speed and how fast your page loads, etc. But instead of chasing all of that stuff, it's much, much more important to make sure that your site loads fast, period. Whether you're doing your own WordPress site or whether you are using a Squarespace or a format site or whoever you're doing, make sure it loads fast, but then have good, useful, valuable, well-written content and good, useful, and valuable links to help the person, okay? At this point, when we talk about business marketers, 88% surveyed agree that creating content, good content, makes their audience view that company as credible and trusted, okay? So it all comes down to content in the end. You could spend tons of money and have some company pimp out your website and basically juice it so that it's going to do well in search engine results for a little while, just for a little while. Because the problem with spending all that money with these companies that say, oh, we'll get you to the first page in Google, a lot of them actually can do that. But unless you're going to keep spending that money, you're not going to stay there. So it's going to have very little value to you. And even worse yet, having them push you up to the top is only going to be valuable to you if you've got work that people want. So before you spend that kind of money on any kind of SEO help, make sure you're being honest with yourself about the quality of the photography that you're trying to sell. If you still have more work to do in your photography, do the work before you spend the money. You won't regret it. If your work is top-notch and you feel that things are getting stagnant, then it may be worth looking into that. But understand, you're actually better off learning how to write some good content or pay to have some good content written for you and keep adding it over time to your website. That is going to be much, much more valuable than juicing the website with a bunch of keywords and phrases that are going to essentially trick Google's algorithm. The problem with tricking the algorithm is, one, it's incredibly hard to trick the algorithm, and two, the algorithm changes routinely. So you're going to waste your money. Last two things on my list, and believe me, we could go on for hours for this, so I've kind of narrowed a lot of this down. Many of the articles about marketing trends have like 30, 40, 50 trends. This is stuff that I think really can all be put to use well for photographers. This is a big one, the one that I'm about to mention now. It's called UGC. That's the marketing acronym that people use. It stands for User-Generated Content. User-generated content is an insanely great marketing tool. 10 years ago, we couldn't have done it because the users couldn't generate it now, but now everybody has a video camera in their phone, and they're really high quality cameras, and they do decent sound. So the best part of it is user-generated content. It strengthens your brand. It's relatable to people. It's uplifting. It helps you meet your customers where they're already at. Plus, it helps you generate content, tons more content. So I know some of you are still like, okay, well, that sounds cool, but I still don't get what user-generated content is. User-generated content is, I'll use the old school analogy. Old school, when I say old school, I mean 10 years ago in the internet. But 10 years ago, if you were really trying to learn marketing to improve your business and build your following and build your web traffic, people would pound you constantly and say, you got to get more testimonials. You got to get testimonials. You got to get people that will write something great about your business. Who wants to read? You don't like to read. You all like to watch YouTube, right? Get your users to generate it. So am I talking about like sending an email to every one of your customers and saying, hey, could you record a video to me? I guarantee you'll get 0 to 1 if you do that. Trust me. I ask for reviews every single week on the Talk Chat Photography podcast. I've been doing that podcast for about 3 years now. I've got 17 reviews. I think it's 17 reviews, something like that. Not many. People don't like writing reviews, not unless they're pissed off at you. Then they'll gladly write a review. Otherwise, people don't like writing positive reviews. Like, why? What do they get? So they don't do it. So no, I'm talking about getting people to do a video, but you got to do it in the moment. So let's say you're a high school portrait photographer, right? Senior portrait photographer. So while you've got that kid there and you've made sure, so again, you got to work, right? You got to be doing good work. You make sure that they've had fun that day. It's the end of the shoot. It's all done. You show them a couple previews. They're stoked. You pick up your camera, and literally you could even be in the video. You pick it up and you say, hey, so-and-so, what did you think about working with me today? Boom, and turn it around and record it. But here's what you ultimately want. Ultimately, you want them to do it with their phone. Get them to do it with their phone and say, so look, can I get you to post it? Will you go home and post it on Facebook or post it on Instagram? Just tag me, right? So once they've done that, you can embed that post in your website. You can share it on your social media, but all of their following is going to see it. Make sure that you're shooting little video clips during your session and even getting the people to talk or say things. You know, show them a preview and say, so what do you think about that? And make sure that you're getting that moment where it's like, oh my God, that's so cool. Boom, right? Send them that clip. Try and get them to post it. But the whole idea is get them to record things, get them to say things, get them to post things. One of the best ways to build your following, to get noticed, to do marketing without spending money is to have your customers do it for you. But you have to ask. If you don't ask, it's not going to happen. And then one last thing that is very, very important. This is something that should have been around for a long time. It hasn't been. I'm very proud of the fact that for, easily the last 10, maybe 12 years, it's been a very big part of my photography. But after last year, inclusivity. Inclusivity became a huge focus in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter movement and obviously highlighting a lot of the endemic issues that linger within various parts of our society and our world. Make it a point with your marketing to be inclusive. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. And I got to tell you, just from a simple creative standpoint, and obviously, you know, with the pandemic, my shooting pretty much came to a halt. I'm finally starting to get back into the studio now. In fact, I have a shoot coming up this Friday, which I'm doing for Juneteenth, which I'm really excited about. But I was starting to not only do a lot of inclusive imagery, because you go back and look through my portfolio, you will find people of all origins in my portfolio. But I was also starting to do a lot of my beauty work with males and having a lot of fun with it. So even from a creative standpoint, I will challenge you to the idea to step outside your box. Maybe it's not your taste or your thing, but you will be amazed how much you will learn. And look, I'm not proud of the fact, but I'll be honest and I'll own it. 15 years ago, if you would have said to me, hey, Joe, you should put some pretty guys in front of your camera and do the same kind of beauty shots, I would have given you a typical like middle-aged white guy response and said, come on, what are you, nuts? I'm not proud of that, but I would have. And that's why I'm owning it. So it took me a while. It's taking a lot longer while, but it took me a while to realize I was the one missing out. There's a lot of opportunity there, a lot of opportunity, not only to do really cool photography, interesting photography, but to also understand. Because the reason why I would have said, why would I do that? It's because I didn't understand. That's why most of us turn our noses up at things like that. So by actually making an effort to interact with people who live that lifestyle or have those feelings or beliefs, all of it, I get to learn and I get to understand. So hopefully you found this helpful. This is kind of, a 30,000 foot overview. If you're still watching, I will tell you this. Please do not hesitate. Leave questions. I mean, if you're still here tonight, leave questions in the chat, but don't hesitate to leave questions in the comments below the video. And you have my word, I will either answer them in the comments or I'll leave you a note and say, hey, make sure you check back next week or the week after, and I will address them. I love to nerd out on marketing, and I love to make photographers, or I should say help photographers, understand how they can make these connections. Marketing doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't. It's just like photography doesn't have to be hard. But indeed, you do have to put some effort into it. You do have to put some thought into it. You have to learn a little bit. And if you've paid close attention, you hear me say all the time, my work as a photographer, 80% is psychology, 20% is photography. Well, this marketing stuff's kind of the same, right? I would argue that 90% of the marketing is psychology. 10% is the actual doing, making the post, whatever. Okay. So there is a lot of overlap and there's a lot of similarities. But please, what I do hope you take away is the key to you improving your marketing is not going out and spending a ton of money. And it's definitely not. You notice two things we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and we didn't talk about like Google search ads. Don't do it. Just don't do it. That is not going to be of value to any photographer. Period. So don't do it. All right, let's do some questions. I saw one or two that came in. I also had one or two that came in early in my Facebook group. So I want to go ahead and I want to hit those really quick here. Here I thought, I've been watching the chat, the whole show, and I thought, oh, nobody's going to ask. Nobody's going to ask. Nobody's going to ask. Somebody asked in Facebook. So I'll start with this one because it's the one that's going to get me in trouble. German, gear-related question. What do you think about the new Magmod products? And then he goes on to say, is it worth it? Meh, or just a gimmick? So, look, I have always been honest with you folks, oftentimes to my detriment. So let me start with this. I have spent probably, I would say close to $1,000, if not just over $1,000 on Magmod products. When I first learned about Magmod, Trevor, who is the founder, the guy, I talked to him at a trade show. I believe it was Photo Plus where I first met him. And he did send me some samples, like the basic kit and some gels. And I fell in love with them. They were great. And then I've gone out and I've bought a ton of stuff. And if you've ever seen me present at a trade show or at a photo event, you've seen me use Magmod, gels and modifiers and all that kind of stuff. They're great. As far as the new stuff goes, I have two problems. So let me talk about the thing that irritates me the most, and then I'll tell you what I think about the actual items that they've released. The thing that irritates me the most, honestly, it just annoys the hell out of me that we have made it okay for a company that's making good money, big profits, to go to Kickstarter and get people to essentially pay for them to develop a product. So basically, the consumer is taking all the risk out of this new product for Magmod. Now, you heard me say, I like Magmod products. But to me, that's just not what should be happening, period. So maybe it's because I'm old school. Maybe I'm old. You can call it what you want. But it just irritates the crap out of me that people are buying this stuff sight unseen, and they're basically funding this company that's making great money. Magmod is crushing it, gang. And yet people are like already, and the amount of money that's been like posted already on Kickstarter is insane. So that being said, I think that the new pieces, the 3 new pieces, and there's a couple other accessories, like they have a new grip because the new accessories are heavier. So they needed the new grip to, handle more weight, which, by the way, that means that the first grip was not well thought out. The first grip was kind of short-sighted because they just built it for that one modifier without even, think about it. This is a company that makes modifiers. So they never thought about the idea that maybe we want to make a bigger modifier later and made it stronger. No, they made it just enough to handle that modifier, but it doesn't handle the new modifiers because they're heavier. So do understand that when you look at the prices of the new Magmod stuff, that's not the price, because you still got to buy, the mounts, you still got to buy the grips, you still need all the pieces to be able to make it work, right? There are some brilliant design features in it. So let's get to the pros, right? Brilliant design features. Their grids are actually magnetized, no Velcro. Man, I might actually use grids more if there was no Velcro involved, because the Velcro is just annoying as hell. Now, you've all heard me say before, people are using grids way too often in ways that they shouldn't be using them in the first place and making their lighting a lot harder because they don't understand the inverse square law. But the fact of the matter is, grids still have a very important role to play in lighting. The idea that you can just put it on with a magnet that fast, sweet. I also think that it's a brilliant design feature that they have their patent pending diffuser pocket. So the front diffuser on those boxes, you basically disconnect it and fold it up into the unit in a little zipper pouch. And then when you're ready to use it, you just unzip that pouch, pull it out, and run a zipper all the way around. No Velcro. So that stuff there, awesome. But here's what I want you to understand. Everything you've heard me say, pro and con, you haven't heard me say anything that is going to impact the quality of your photograph, right? So that being said, to me, the common sense thing is you don't help pay for a company to develop a product and get it shipped here from China. You wait for the product to come out. You go to a trade show, you go to a camera store because they sell them in camera stores. You wait until your buddy who's, a gearhead buys it. And then you look at it, you check it out, and then you have to ask yourself, well, I've already got a strip box or I've already got this size modifier. Is it really going to make a difference in my photography if I buy this other one? So yes, based on their first round of stuff, their first modifier was very well made. The grip, by the way, is great. I actually love the grip. But in terms of would I be participating in Kickstarter? I don't think I would. Okay. And I know they probably will. Alan, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I don't think that they will appreciate me saying that, but I'm just being honest. That's, I wouldn't do the Kickstarter thing. Okay. And I get it. You get a discount, but still, the principle of me helping a company, when a camera company builds a camera, when, Profoto or Westcott, they put out stuff, I complain about how expensive they are, but they foot the cost. They put the product together. They put it to market. Magmod's a big company now. Magmod's making big bucks. They shouldn't be coming to us asking us to pay for what they're doing, period. So Thomas K. had a question in my group. I'd love to know more about how you effectively shoot in an environment where light is extremely limited, meaning dark, and where you're still able to render images with little noise. Okay, so for example, this weekend he's shooting a recital, dancers with relatively fast movement, simply being lit with two 250-watt spotlights from across the room, which means no light, okay? I was at f2.8, wide open, at less than 6 feet to the dancers, at times trying to maintain 1/250th, 1/320th of a second, or excuse me, 1/250th, 1/320th of a second. The ISO had to be pushed to 6400. That's not terrible, but I'd love to know if there's some better tricks in pushing ISO to that level. Thomas, I mean, honestly, not really, but, and this is all about tolerance, patience, camera angle, lens choice, etc. I used to, and Thomas is here in the Lehigh Valley where I am, so he'll know this reference. Thomas, I used to do all the theater and the dance imagery for Muhlenberg College. They have, a world-class dance program. I used to shoot all their dance stuff, and we would do both an organized dress rehearsal shoot where obviously I could arrange stuff, post stuff, and have them tweak the lighting to meet my needs. And by the way, this was back in the days of like the Nikon D200 and D300, where you did not want to raise ISO because you were going to get noise the minute you hit like 400 ISO, right? So just so we have some context there. But I also shot performances, and I would shoot most of the dance performances at 1/125th of a second shutter speed. Now, if I did that with a long lens, or if I had the dancer going across my frame, I was going to get motion. But if I picked my moments where the dancers peaked in emotion or they were coming towards me, that 1/125th was enough to get the job done. So every now and then, did I have an image with some subject motion? Yes. That's not ideal, but it's a matter of building a skill set. The other thing I will point out to you that what you need to do is a little experiment, right? Your camera, and I believe you're a Nikon shooter, if I remember correctly, and I'm sorry, but it won't matter. It doesn't matter what brand, but your camera has dynamic range. Now, most cameras on the market today are, advertising somewhere around at least, just as an average, 12 stops of dynamic range. So I'm not suggesting that you underexpose your image by 12 stops. If you do that, the noise is going to be off the charts because you'll get more noise by underexposing than you will by overexposing. However, the point is, you would be able, with your camera, just do a little test, you could probably go as many as 2 stops if it's a Nikon, underexposed, and be able to pull those files, out as a good exposure without bringing up the noise. Easily 1 stop. So that's also going to gain you a little bit lower ISO and better shutter speed. So you need to do a little bit of experimenting. The good part is you don't have to do that experiment because this isn't about stopping the motion. You already know what your comfort zone is in terms of shutter speeds to stop the motion. So you could do this experiment in your living room and then just go to your computer and compare the images once you've brought the exposure back up. So you might be able to get as much as 2 stops out of it. You should be able to get at least 1 stop. That's also going to give you a little bit more room to balance. And then, certainly I understand how it is when you're doing event work like that. You generally have very, very little control. But, if that's going to be something or an organization that you're going to shoot for on an ongoing basis, I would try potentially to arrange to be able to shoot not the recitals, but dress rehearsals, or, lean on them to be able to maybe at least get up to a third 250-watt light. Every little bit helps. If they like your work and if your work is good enough, you will have some leverage if you are able to convince them that it is going to provide them with better quality images, especially if they want to be able to use those images for marketing and advertising. So those would be the things that I would consider. Dwayne, thank you so much for the super chat. And I just wanted to put this one up here. Dwayne had a question. Thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate that. So you're using format. How much is too much on your website in terms of images? I shoot weddings, portraits, and events. 3 niches, okay? Well, I hate to say that 3 niches is okay generically because, you might be doing like portraits, landscape, and insects, in which case I'd say, hell no. Like, they're completely apart. Portraits, weddings, and events, yes. It's a very common thing to see those all together. I think that's fine. I think the key is when you start creating more categories. Here's a common rookie mistake that I see photographers make when they're building their websites and they have multiple categories. They feel that they have to have a set number of images in each category, and maybe they're all OCD. So it's like, okay, I want 12. So I need 12 wedding, 12 portraits, 12 events. And the problem that always happens is one of those categories is 12 amazing images. The second category is 9 amazing images and 3 good ones. And the third category, is like 6 amazing images, 5, they're good, and 1, why is it there? It's clearly a filler, right? So don't think that you've got to have the categories balanced. And be honest with yourself. If you're just starting out and you really only have 4 amazing portraits and maybe 6 amazing wedding shots, you can look like a rock star with those 10 pictures, as opposed to having 12 in each category. So then just make it one category, portraits and weddings, and then a second category, events, and then you split them later, right? So basically, in terms of how many pictures, understand that quality over quantity, always. Less is better. You only want to put your best foot forward, period. So you don't have to have, 3 different versions of how to photograph a cake, 3 different versions of how to photograph a ring, 3 different versions of how to photograph the dress hanging on the back of the door. No, put your best stuff on there and make sure it's amazing. And then over time, you're going to build it out and you'll remove images, you'll add new images, but it's never about quantity. As a wedding photographer, you may not put it on your website, but one of the things you're going to want to have available as a marketing tool is sample albums. So people can see what a full wedding that you've done. You may have it online as a gallery. It should not be something that you're pushing into people's faces right away, but it may be there. Or better yet, it's an actual book so that when you meet them, you're going to show them the actual book. Don't make the mistake of starting a wedding business and, basically handing people digital files and saying goodbye. You're not going to make a lot of money that way. You're just not. Okay. So albums still have a lot of value. Prints are still important in the wedding business. Portrait and wedding photographers that are making real bank, they don't make it by taking pictures. They make it by selling prints and albums, period. So I hope that helps, okay? And I'm over time, but I got one last question here. So I'll hit this one, and then we're going to run. From Joe in Michigan. After a client has paid a deposit to you, and then they keep changing the dates or they don't answer your emails, how long should you wait before giving up on them and just hold on to the deposit till they contact you for a different photo session, or what do you do? Well, Joe, it sounds like, since you're asking me the question this way, it sounds like you did not basically sign a contract with them or have them sign a contract. So, my advice is you take this one as a learning lesson. And if they come back to you 2 years from now and they are ready to complete the transaction and pay you the balance and do the shoot, then you apply that deposit. I would not offer them the money back unless they ask for it. But if they don't ask for it, just hold on to it. And if it takes them 6 months, if it takes them 2 years, then finish the job. Ideally, in your contract that you have with clients, you will have specific language. And this is the proper way to do it. You will have specific language that says this deposit is good for such and such a time, and or you can cancel or reschedule up to a certain date, but you lose your deposit if you do this. That's a very common thing in contracts. Joe, I would encourage all of you that are looking to do business this week, Friday, the Talk Chat Photography Podcast. My guest is an attorney, and we are having a conversation all about copyright law, contracts, modeling releases, all that good stuff. And I assure you, here's the best part of this attorney. This attorney gives honest, easy to understand answers. So I would encourage you, make sure you check out this week's podcast. We deal with a lot of stuff. And even for me, who's been doing this for a long time, I actually learned a lot of really, really useful information, in the course of doing this interview. So I would encourage you to check that out. Okay, gang, it was a lot of information. I know a bunch of you have headaches now with all that marketing stuff. So you have my permission. Go have a drink, but relax, right? It doesn't have to be that hard. Just stay aware, pay attention to what's out there, and figure out which things are going to be best for you. And understand that you don't have to try them all at once. You don't have to do them all at once. But be aware. Don't have your head in the sand, okay? And I assure you, please get away from the habit of thinking that you've got to post every day, all that kind of stuff. You simply don't. Quality over quantity. Always. That's what's going to get you noticed. That's what's going to help you build your business. So guys, you know the drill. Please stay safe. Go pick up your camera and shoot something, because your best shot, gang, it's your next shot. Adios. See you later.